Should is a very naughty word. It's what keeps us stuck. It's what prevents us from really accessing our deep emotions as creatives, and it's what leads us to act inauthentically and out of alignment with our values because we think it's how the world believes we should be. So by the end of this video, I want to leave you resourced and more well-equipped to connect deeply to yourself, to disarm the shame so that you can feel the emotions beneath it, so that you can step into a more authentic expression for yourself, so you can create a new culture of your life moving forward. So if you're new here, my name's Kev. I'm an award-winning furniture designer, and I help ambitious creatives get into their body. And I will be the first to say that shame, the program of shame that I adopted, that I installed, that the world installed in me, was the biggest factor keeping me from feeling safe in my body. And so I would spend most of my life in my head. I would be numb from the neck down, and I would be living in my intellect. I would be living through this sort of third eye spirituality, disembodied, disassociative state, right? Thinking that that's what spirituality is. If non-duality is feeling nothing type of thing. If you've been there, I know how it goes, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a time when we can learn to hold that as well as being alive. And shame was one of those things that did not connect me to my aliveness, but I didn't even know it was the program that was running all of my life, because it shows up in subtle ways. And that's why I think that should is really the naughtiest curse word, the S word, because it implies shame. Whenever I say, I should do this, I should have done that, I should be more like this, what we're really doing is shaming ourselves for who we currently are. Or we're shaming our previous actions, which is leading to us being in disharmony with who we are, being in a lack of acceptance for how and why we are the way we are right now. So shame is a really dirty fuel. And out there I see a lot of personal transformation that tries to use shame as the sort of vessel, the fuel to move forward in life. But I've found that it's not sustainable, because it's really kicking up dense primal muck that deserves and needs a lot of tenderness, a lot of compassion, fierceness as well, but it needs a deep compassion and willingness to be able to embrace it, not try to get rid of it, right? And so a lot of the personal transformation space has to deal with getting rid of shame, getting rid of fear, getting rid of these things. But anything that you truly love, why would you want to get rid of that? And something that is a part of you ought to be loved because it's a part of you. Now, it's hard to arrive at this place because shame is dense. It keeps us from even accessing why the shame is there in the first place, from being curious about it, right? It just becomes the program that is the proverbial glasses that we see everything through. And it's rooted in us really not feeling good enough, right? So if I'm saying I should be more successful than I am, what I am doing is shaming myself for not being successful, which means I'm not accepting where I am, which means how on earth am I going to be resourced to create the life that I crave if I'm not accepting where I am now? Because the first step to any real, lasting, sustainable, and juicy change is complete and total acceptance for who you are. The problem is that most people believe that if I come into full acceptance for who I am, I'm just going to be passive about it. Why would I change if I accept who I am? But this funny thing happens when we really accept who we are. We access a deeper level of self-compassion and self-love. Don't really like using that term because it's really misconstrued. But we access a more full embrace of all of the flavors of us, which gives us energy, inspires us, connects us to our values, which naturally becomes really great fuel to create change from. Only when I come into full acceptance for who I am I actually fully present. So when I'm fully present, I'm caught up in time, in space, and from there, I can actually do something with my life. Shame is what keeps us from being everywhere but here, right? We are everywhere but here when we're running on that program of shame. We're thinking what we should do in the future, filling our future with so many shoulds. Oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should go to Mallorca, I should build that business, I should, all of those things, which separates us from our connection and our life force and our creativity now, outsourcing it to a future date, at the same time as we shame ourselves for all the decisions we've made and all the circumstances in the past that created our current scenario now. So we're living there, continually shaming ourselves. We're placing all of these shoulds for what we should be doing in the future, creating a condition of shame now that hasn't even happened yet, right? So no wonder why it's scary as fuck to be in our body, right? No wonder why we feel a little numb, why we just feel not good enough, why we feel like there's not enough for us, and why even bother, right? So the reframe is to actually get curious and to learn to love shame and what is beneath it. And the way that I have found this to be helpful is to think of shame as the doorway. To think of all those places that you should yourself as a doorway into a deeper inquiry of what's really happening in your body. So you can think of shame as this bouncer, the bouncer at the bar, the protector. And it looks really, really daunting. So I don't want to go through that door because who's that big, scary, meaty dude looking at me funny, Why would I want to turn towards that? Get curious about it and love it. But if you're anything like me, you like that kind of ruthless self-reflection. So at some point, you kind of knock on the door and you turn towards it with love. And what I find is that shame is protecting these deeper emotions of feeling inadequate, This feeling like there's just helpless and hopeless and worthlessness, which are dense, right? They're so deep, they're so dense. And they're not limiting beliefs, they're not thoughts, they are programs, deep emotions that are stored in our nervous system. And when we can turn towards them without even needing to have the story, right? The story's going to come up. You'll know where that fundamental imprint was when that code got installed in you. I believed that I wasn't good enough when my second grade teacher said that my art looked sloppy, when I was really focused on trying to make it look clean. So I adopted this belief that my art's not good enough, therefore I'm so connected to it, so I'm not good enough, and X, Y, and Z, whatever that story is. That's not actually true for me, I just made that up. But nonetheless, when we can kind of just not focus on needing to find the story, but really just feel that emotion fully, to completely relax our body, to completely soften into what would it be like to fully fucking feel like a failure, to fully feel inadequate, to fully feel the anger and the resentment and the grief for not being where I want to be in life. What happens, again, is that paradox. We think we're going to get lost there, but when we just allow ourselves the space to move through that, and now this doesn't necessarily mean it's one moment, right? If you're someone who hasn't developed that sense of emotional fluidity with yourself, rewiring the shame and the emotions below it is dense. It's a lifelong journey. It's going to take time. You can do some big excavations in a relatively short window, but it's not like, all right, today I'm going to feel my deepest fears and then I'm going to move on. I want you to do that, but it's not as black and white as that, right? This is a process, because on what timeline? You have a lifelong history being operated through this lens of shame. So it might take a season, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 5 years, who knows, to start to really embody a new operating system. But there's no emotion, no story, no limitation, no piece of code so daunting in you that you can't transform it and transfigure it. but it's going to take dedicated practice to feeling. So it's creating space, it's seeing a therapist, it's working with a coach, it's getting together in circle, it's having 30 minutes every morning and evening on your yoga mat where you can just feel and be in your own process. It's all of these things and so much more, right? But that's the start to create that safety in your body to write a new story, to where that big monster of shame is less like a monster and more like a part of you that's just begging to be loved. And when we learn to feel fully, we learn to love ourselves fully. And from there, as creatives, we access our present tense. We're no longer stuck in the past, and we're no longer worried about a future that hasn't happened yet. We are here. So we're well-resourced to create. And so when shame comes knocking at our door again, we knock back and we get curious about it. Like, shame, what do you have to teach me today? Like, what am I avoiding? What, if I can't feel this shame, what would I have to feel? For me, it's a lot of grief. For me, it's been a ton of grief and anger. And anger is one of those things that my whole life I was like, I'm not an angry person. I don't get angry. I've never felt anger, which is a ding, 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 red flag, telltale sign that you just have a lot of repressed anger, probably hidden behind some shame that needs to be accessed. And I mean, I can dive so deep into the nuance of creating space for those in a fun and playful way. That's what the Embodied Creator Toolkit is for. That's what somatic therapy is for. That's what creating a men's circle or a women's circle is for. But all that to say, if you feel stuck, it's likely because the emotion that's hiding beneath the shame is craving to be seen, and it doesn't know how to present itself. So the shame is going to loop you and spiral you, and it's going to keep presenting itself until one day you get curious about it and you ask why. Why shame? Like, why here? Why now? Why me? What do you have to teach me? You know, and then you start to shift from the why questions into the how, because a lot of why questions are rooted in shame themselves as well. But once we kind of get through that, then we start asking how. You know, it's like, how can I learn to love this part of myself? How can I learn to create space for my grief? How can I learn to channel my anger in healthy, clean ways? I can give you 1,000 examples, but those are powerful reframes for you as a creative to get unstuck, to stop shaming yourself, and to become a little bit more open, liberated, and free so that you are present to create powerfully for the world. So if that's something you're interested in, this YouTube channel is a great place. The Embodied Creator Toolkit's a great resource, and my newsletter, of course. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for being here. Ciao.